Welcome everyone to this month's installment of the Intentional Success webinar. I'm Tom Stimson. Today we're going to talk about working with shorter lead times and most importantly, why this is good for you. I mean, obviously I've heard a lot of complaining, especially the past 6 months, about how lead times keep shrinking. Clients expect you to be able to put together quotes at the last minute and have availability. They don't understand your supply chain problems, or maybe they're not as sympathetic as you would hope them to be. And it's becoming a problem. And it's fine until your best client calls and they've got a major project in 2 weeks and you're slammed, and you're flying people in and your costs are higher and you're having trouble finding freelancers and your suppliers are running out of equipment. I get all of that. However, there's a real sunny side to this. There's a great upside to working with short lead times. Because one, these people are calling you, okay, so they're yours, and there is something you can do for them if you have the process. So I'm going to make some assumptions here that you've got some solid sales processes, that you've taken to heart some of the other webinars that I've done, particularly in the past several months, which have been focusing on processes, baseline quoting, getting to the next phone call, all that kind of stuff. All of that's going to come into play here to help you learn how to work with shorter lead times and be successful at it and be able to support your customers. For those of you who are new, I'm Tom Stimson. I'm president of the Stimson Group. I am a business consultant. I work exclusively in the live events industry, and I advise owners and stakeholders, management teams on how to improve business processes, get their business to the next level, increase profitability, which we're seeing a lot of these days. It's a lot of fun. It's very exciting to see people making some serious bank, as they deserve to, and hopefully we're going to keep that going. This is being recorded. I always check it right about now to make sure I hit record. We use the Q&A box for questions. Feel free to introduce yourself to everybody in chat. Say hello, where you're coming from. It's always nice to see the variety of places that people ring in from. If you haven't been here for a while, people would love to hear from you. But when you do get a question, and questions are important, it's why I'm here. It's not just for me to spew stuff one direction. Put them in the Q&A box so that I know, so that I can see them, process them, and get to them in the time allotted. Finally, oh yeah, and of course this will be recorded. It'll be posted at the end of the day. You'll get an email at the end of the day about where to go find it if you don't have that bookmarked already. So, yeah, shorter lead times. So this came up at the beginning, back in 2020, beginning of the pandemic, mainly because it was just mass confusion out there, and people were scrambling to figure out how to get a streaming event or get a Zoom assist going, blah blah blah. That's water under the bridge. That's ancient history. The era we're talking about now is we're back into this live event world. Sure, there's still streams. There's still hybrid versions of what we're doing, but we're back to logistics. We're back to having to move equipment and people into places that were designed for banquets or something else. Lead times are important because there's a lot of planning involved in what you do. And over the summer, since we had such success, particularly in the US, with doing in-person events, and I know you guys were swamped in the spring, a lot of companies said, hey, let's go ahead with our fall event. And here you are, you're swamped again. Yeah, I'll tell you, attendance is a little bit down today. It's about 2/3 of what it normally is. And I know why. It's because you guys are all busy. I've got a lot of clients. I know how busy they are by how light my calendar has become. So this is the time of year when I get some projects done, mow the yard in the middle of the week, go to work out a little bit more because you guys are swamped. So having this tool that I'm going to talk about today is going to be important for you, because if you can get one more job in, this month or next month, it can make all the difference in the world in your business, and whether or not you get to keep that really awesome client or win that new client. And that's what this is all about. So why a webinar about this? Because I just basically gave you the gist of it. Get over it. Short lead times, deal with it, right? Look, short lead times are not the problem. We've always had short lead times. They may not have been as prevalent, okay? We're talking about this today because it is a huge untapped opportunity that we need to take advantage of. They require a different response than what you're used to getting. The measured process that I normally talk about in the selling process assumes that you've got that 6 to 12 week lead time, and you can schedule meetings, do discovery calls, bring the team in, create some renderings, get some buy-in, explore some options, and then sign off on the job, get a deposit going, and get the ball rolling. We can't do that when we have 2 weeks of lead time or 3 weeks of lead time. We have to do something different. We're also talking about this because if you want to take advantage of this, you're going to have to rebalance some priorities. So I will talk about some things behind the sales process that also are affected by this and what you can do about it. So I'm not just going to talk about sales. Okay. And I want you to change your focus from filling your calendar, which is our traditional method of measuring success. Our calendar is full, to optimizing it. Having a full calendar of low margin, non-ideal customers and projects is not success. Okay. Optimizing it, having a calendar that's 80% full of high quality, repeat business, repeatable business, good margins, work that you're going to execute well, clients are going to be happy and keep coming back to you. That's much more preferable than that little extra bit of business that pushes you over the top. So if you're processing a short lead opportunity the same way you treat your long lead opportunities, then you're going to have problems, right? You want to change your focus on from filling your calendar to optimizing it. Now, not having a last minute response also leads to gaps in revenue. So I am seeing a little bit of a bounce up and down in my clients' schedules who are struggling to handle last minute business. And it's because they are so caught up with the business that's at hand, including the salespeople, that they can't process it. They don't have the patience or the presence of mind to not freak out a little bit when their best client calls and says they have a job in 2 weeks. They go, "Oh my God, do you know how busy we are?" Wrong response. How do we keep from falling into that self trap? Okay. It's because we don't have a last minute response. We don't know how to process that. Okay. If your response is unhelpful, like, "Oh my God, do you know how busy we are?" Or just slow, saying, "Oh man, I got to check on this. I got to talk to 5 different people. We're going to have an ops meeting on Thursday. I can talk to you after that." If that's slow, it's also a little bit unhelpful. You know, if that's how you're treating last minute requests, it's going to hurt your future inquiries, because all you're doing is telling that buyer they better start calling other people now. Maybe you're the third company they've called, and if they're getting a consistent response, they're going to keep going. Why not be the third company to call and you be the first company that gave them a helpful response? Okay. If you don't have a good last minute response, ideal customers, and you never know, this could be a perfect new customer for you if they're new. Okay. They can't see themselves doing business with you because you haven't done any business with them. In fact, all you've done is chase them away, acted like their need was a problem. Okay. When your team starts to value easy over important, okay, last minute becomes a problem. And sometimes these last minute jobs are important for your business. They're important customers. You need that extra effort to figure out how to pull this off. You should have planned for it a little bit better, maybe not taking some jobs that were marginal, right? There's lots to like about last minute, okay? Short lead times mean you're going to get a faster confirmation, which means you're going to get paid faster. They're great for cash flow, right? They don't take as much time to process, right? Quick decision-making process. So they're not going to suck up a lot of energy. You're not going to do a bunch of drawings and stuff. You're going to get people to a deal, and then you're going to figure out the details later. You are going to control more of the scope of work. And isn't that what you've always wanted? Isn't that your favorite thing in the world, is be able to tell the customer and dictate how it's going to go down? Here's your chance to do that. It's because your availability is controlling the scope of work that you can put on the table. You've got a lot of control here. The margins are going to be inherently higher because there's no time to negotiate. Even if your best customer comes in and says, hey, I have this last minute show, I want to do it for the same budget as the last one, you can say, I think we can help you. However, I don't have any discount to give away on a last minute show. All of that's going to be eaten up by the extra cost of doing things at the last minute. And they're going to go, oh yeah, well, I figured something is that. There's lots more margin to be made here. If not, at least you could maintain the margins you should be making, even though your costs are going to be a little bit higher. So you, the seller, have most of the leverage, right? Do you know how to use that leverage properly? So if you follow my general theory on how to move an opportunity through your sales process and getting that customer to the next call, layering on value, making sure that we're, selling a agreed upon scope of work for an agreed upon budget, reducing scope creep, all of those things. If you're following that, the fast response process is the same, but we're going to compress the timeline, right? Which means we're not going to wait for as many specifics before moving forward. There's a little bit of leap of faith. The good news is you're going to learn how to sell gray a little bit better, okay? You have to react quickly if you want the client to react quickly, right? So you need to have a quick process. Here's a little bit about what it looks like. I'm going to talk about 3 contact points in the process. Imagine a timeline where the client calls you this morning and says, we have a job in 2 weeks. I've got 500 salespeople in the Marriott Ballroom downtown. It's a 3-day event, and we just found out about it. What do we do next, right? We need help. Great. In the timeline I'm going to describe, you're going to talk to them this morning. You're going to talk to them again, maybe at the end of the day. You will talk to them again the next morning, and then the deal is going to be done by the end of the next day or the beginning of the third morning, 48 hours later. Think in terms of a compressed timeline, and you are in control. You're going to dictate the timeline. And if you feel that you can do the job, in order for you to do it, here's the timeline that we're going to follow. So it looks like this. Mindset change. The first question a last minute customer should be asking you and may not know they should be asking you is, are you available? Right? That's always the first question. Are you available? Is this job in your wheelhouse? What will my budget get me, or how much do I need to budget? And when do I have to commit? As a last minute buyer, if they don't know this is what they need to be doing, what their order of priority is, it's our job to educate them. Okay. So first question is, they say, well, we have this next event. It says, okay, great. The first thing I need to do is I need to check on our availability. While I'm doing that, tell me more about your project. Okay, so I need the dates. I need some baseline understanding. They're going to talk about that. I'm looking at some dates. Immediately, as you have that information, then ask for their contact information. And make sure you get a cell phone number. Said, it looks like we can work. It looks like I'm going to be able to help you in some fashion. Let me get your full name, your email, and your cell phone number. This will have to move quickly. Cell phone's going to be important, right? Focus on the future business on this too, because now you have all their contact information. Even if you do not do this job, this is somebody that you're going to keep in touch with, and you're giving them a positive response, not a negative experience. Okay. Ask about their budget. Is there a budget or anything you had in mind? They're going to say no. They don't know what the budget is. Get used to that. That's normal. That's what customers are supposed to say. You're going to say, okay, based on what you've described, the baseline for this event is probably $50,000 to $70,000. Depending on the options you choose, you might spend $70 to $120. That's a huge range, right? That gives you a lot of room to dial them into what's important to them. But if you don't know what it's going to take to give audio, video, and lighting to a sales group of 500 people in the Marriott Ballroom for 3 days downtown, then you're in the wrong business. All right. That's bread and butter work. That's a baseline job. Pipe and drape, 2 screens, sound, speakers on sticks, ability to put computers up on the screen, to stream out, stick a camera in there. We can take it out later. A couple of wireless mics. We're there. Some uplights on the drapes. Okay. What more do you need to know? You have a baseline. That takes 5 people to service it in our current environment. You would have done it with 3 people before the pandemic. It's 5 people now, right? So great, you've got a baseline budget. You know how to spew those things out. Next step. The purpose of this call is to get you to the next call, okay? If they say, well, we didn't have a range, I need to go check on that, fine, give them some time to check on that, still set up the next call. Okay, unless you reply to me otherwise, I'm going to assume that you at least have a $50,000 baseline budget, and our next call will be this afternoon at 4 o'clock, and we're going to go over some options, or tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, and we're going to go over some options. Okay, activate the next step. Don't wait for them to move you to the next step or to find out what their budget is if they don't know. Tell them what the assumption is. If they come back to you and says, "Oh, I talked to my boss. He said he only had $25,000 in mind." Thank them, give them the phone number to the next company they need to call and send them on down the road. You at least have given them a professional response. But chances are they're going to come back and say, well, I told my boss and he grumbled a little bit, but then he also said, we really need to do this meeting. Okay, great. Did he say anything else about this? He says, yeah, he really wanted to have a recording of it and he wanted to be able to stream it live. Great. We'll put those into the baseline. Right now, for that next meeting, you throw together a fast budget. Okay, doesn't have to be detailed. You don't need drawings. You don't need to figure all the parts and pieces out. Get the big numbers. Right now, in this first contact meeting, I'm setting you up for the second call, but let's get through this first call here. Okay, things to focus on. Process. This is an accelerated timeline. You need to help them understand how this benefits them. Their ability to get these things together means that they have a better chance of having a well-qualified, available provider. Okay? If they drag their feet, they may lose you as an option, and oh, they've already called 3 people and didn't find an option. So you're very important to them right now. Talk about the planning team. Talk about the people in operations and logistics and the labor people and the travel coordinator and all the folks that are waiting for information to make this all move forward quickly. Okay? They need to see that moving forward with you means that that's a lot of good things are going to happen that's going to move you in the right direction. If they back you into a corner, they're extremely uncertain, they're a confidence buyer, they're very cautious, and they need 24 hours to talk to other suppliers, give them 24 hours, but continue the fast response. Have the call scheduled 24 hours later, right? Take your time. And if you come back to me tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and say you found somebody else you want to go with, that's great. I'll be happy for you, but let's go ahead and set up this call so we don't waste any time. All right. Credit card authorization. Get it on the first call if you can, or start the process on the first call. By the time they get back to you for that second call, you have to have credit card authorization in hand to make this thing move forward, because they need to put the deposit down right away. Remember, you're in control of the timeline, right? And we don't need to know the final version of the job to get some money out of them, right? Get their commitment. Second call. I'm calling this the confirmation call. What, we're confirming already? You darn right we're confirming. We only got 2 weeks here. We got stuff to do. So you've taken your baseline scope of work based on the things that you know about the job. Maybe there's a couple of options that need to be considered. If they want, maybe put a hard set in there, or put some, some fancier lighting, or a second camera, or something else. You can put some options or upgrade paths in there for them, but the baseline is solid. Remember, they talk to their boss, they know they need to stream it. So that's already built in. That is part of the baseline. And you may say, well, if they're going to stream it, I might need to double up on wireless microphones. Well, great, put all of that in there. Okay. Now your baseline is at $70,000, not the 50 you started at, but that's okay. You now have more information. So now you're going to present to them, here's where we're at. Here's how we've provided for everything. Okay. We need to get this confirmed right away, because that team I talked about is ready to go and start putting everything into place. Okay. I've got your credit card authorization. We can get the $10,000 we need to hold this, or to reserve this and get it started. And we can talk about any alterations to the budget target. Maybe there's something else. Oh, by the way, you just found about the party down at the pool. Great. Let's add that into the mix. You see where I'm going? Moving fast. So how are we getting to confirmation in this second call? Well, one, we told them in the timeline, that's the purpose of this call. Can you put a 24-hour hold on it? Yeah, you can. Have the third call scheduled, because we're not leaving the second call without the third call scheduled, right? So say, yes, we're going to make the assumption that the third call is necessary. Let's get that scheduled. You've got a 24-hour hold. Maybe you've got to get some people to sign off. There's some jerk in procurement that thinks they have to touch everything. Fine, go through that, but keep that sense of urgency, because in 24 hours, this goes away. Okay, my team's going to take this job back. They're going to put those resources back into the mix, and we're going to help the next person who calls us with a last-minute call. That's how it works. So in the second call, here's some techniques for getting faster confirmation. Okay, agree in principle to work from a baseline. Okay, if they have time, resources, and money for $50,000, and that's where their comfort zone is, agree to move forward from there. This is your not to go below price. Okay, we can help you. If your budget stays at $50,000, we are good to go. So I'm going to make the assumption that we're going to spend $50,000. They're going to go through the exact same thing with the hotel. When they book food and beverage, they have a baseline price that they have to pay. That's why you're seeing better food at your shows, because they're having to spend more money. They're having to spend more per person. So yeah, all of a sudden they've got to put the scallop skewers onto the hors d'oeuvre list because they've got extra money to spend, right? I've benefited from this. So they will get this. This is not an unusual way for them to buy. They're having this conversation with their venue, okay? You can accept the deposit without a final scope of work. They don't need to make all the decisions about all the things. You don't need to know about every little thing. You have enough to get started, but no commitment, no progress. This is important. We're only 24 hours in. Chill, people. No commitment, no progress. We don't want to send operations off the rails. We're going to give them a heads up. We're going to talk about my friends in operations here in just a few minutes. Don't commit to specifics about how to pull this off. You say, my team's working on it. Okay, my team is not worried about this. We can do this. Okay, you're selling your ability to fulfill. Focus on the process. Okay, focus on the what. Here's what we can do for you, not how. Here's how we're going to pull it off. We're going to pull it off because this is what we do for a living. Third contact. This could be, if we started this morning, this could be tomorrow afternoon. At the latest, it's 48 hours later on the third morning. We're already confirmed. The job is moving forward. This is no longer a maybe. However, there's still some variables that we need to dial in. That's why we call this dial-in call. And we're going to call it the final dial-in, because we don't have time for more creative ideas. When the client calls back after this call and said, hey, we talked about it. We were wondering if we could, and you listen politely and say, based on the timeline we have, we don't recommend that. We can't do it. It's going to create some additional problems that we don't have time to guarantee our results. You'll find the nice way to steer them away from it. And you remind them, if they keep pushing and say, we're not obligated to do that. Our agreement is to get us to this. Okay, we can't raise the bar right now. So focus on finalizing the choices that they do have available. Steer them back to the choices they need to make. You know, do you want to keep this option? Okay, well, I don't know. We need to think about it. Okay, if I don't hear from you by the end of today, that's going to confirm the option. If you don't tell me no, the option is confirmed. We're going to hit your credit card in a couple of days, right? Always predetermine the outcome. Force it onto them to change the outcome. Okay, you can also say, let's assume that it is not going to happen, but if you call me back by the end of the day, I'll add it back in. Call me back tomorrow. The offer's off the table. We have got to move on. We've got to keep the timeline going. Review the timeline, okay? Bring it back up on the screen. Here's how this works. Over communicate progress. use people names. It said, hey, Mary's already booked the crew on this. Jane is working on the logistics of this. We've got this handled. We've talked to the hotel. We know we can get in. We think we can get in an hour earlier, which will mean that you'll have your rehearsal can be earlier. Over communicate, keep the pressure on the buyer to hold up their deliverables by showing how hard you are working on yours. Okay, say we need to know what format your slides are going to be in, or whatever that piece of information is, or here's the choice that we're going to make. Right. So again, pre-decide the either or. They have a chance to get back to you and say, no, it's going to be different, but at some point in time, we have to move forward. Right. Change orders, and they're still going to happen. We're going to minimize them. We're going to keep them easy. It may be as little as, hey, we want to have 4 presenters on the stage at the same time. Not a problem. We can add wireless mics. It's not a big deal, right? Process change orders in real time. Update the budget. Remember, you've got a baseline budget, which includes the original options. Now we're dealing with change orders. Do them in real time. Do not wait for the job to finish. Okay. The goal is to be paid in full for everything that we know that we're doing before the on-site work begins. My timeline would be 5 days before the truck leaves, right? So that's what we're working on the 3rd, is we're trying to get some of those final decisions, and then we'll have some details to work out. You guys know the drill. You've been through this over the next 8 days that's left before the show. Now, how do we get them to keep up with us, right? Don't give them control of the timeline. Okay. Don't say, well, our executives are having a meeting about this on next Thursday. Can we wait until then? I can't. Let's make the best decision we can now and let the executives know what they have to work with. Okay. We can't do that. So that's another way of predetermining your final answer. You know, if you don't confirm this option by the end of the day, then I'm going to have to treat this as a no. Right. Deadlines are triggers, right? Thursday at 3 p.m., we're going to commit resources and charge your credit card for the next installment. Remind them of that when you're talking about that. So your timeline may have a deposit to get things going, to get them committed so that you can work out the final details, right? Call number 3. Now I'm going to bill them for 50% of what's left or 100% of what's left. Okay. Now they've got a little time to process it internally if they want to do a check or a bank transfer or something like that, because now you've probably got 5 days left to do that in. But I always have the credit card authorization to fall back on. And I want to make that clear to them and say, if we don't have payment by then, we're going to hit the credit card. It has to work that way. Right? Now, breathe. That's the regular timeline. If you've got 8, 12, 15 weeks to work on a show, the timeline expands. The steps are pretty much the same. Matter of fact, mastering this short lead timeline will make you better at long lead timelines, right? Because you'll use the deadlines, you will use your schedule to get the information you need to move forward. You'll be able to tell the client, and when you get down to the last 2 weeks, everything is last minute. Everything gets the last minute protocol. Now, we talked about sales. Let's talk about operations and finance, because right now those people are shaking in their boots. Okay. These are your internal customers. You are working for them. This process has to support them. Operations, we want to inform in real time. At first contact, I'm going to finish that call, or during that call, I may be talking to the ops manager. I may be sending them a text message or hitting them up on Slack saying, I'm talking to a client. They've got a job that loads in the morning of the 12th. It's out the afternoon of the 14th. It looks like we have availability. Anything I need to know? No, we're probably okay. Gee, I hope it's not too big. Blah, 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 blah. Shut up. Go back to the client, move the thing forward. Inform operations, or at least operations management at that point. Once you're done with that first contact call, you get the second contact call, okay, which is the confirmation, okay. At that confirmation, Until that time, you're probably at 50-50. Ops should be out of 50-50. This is a heavy pencil. We need to move forward. If the customer refuses to schedule the second call, doesn't want to adhere to the timeline, operations can stand down. You may still pull it out. You may still get that second call, and it may be 12 or 24 hours later, which is probably the limit of what you can do at this point. But for the time being, on that first 24 hours, ops can go in there saying, all right, we better figure out how we can do this. I got to move this person. Why don't we make sure there's another truck available from Ryder? They can do those easy steps so that when they have the hard confirmation, they can pull the trigger on everything. Once that check is in hand, that credit card payment is processed, everybody's on board, right? This is 100%. We have our baseline. Everything is treated as a go. We're not waiting on any decisions to work on the things that we already know we have. This will make a huge impact. The last thing operations wants to hear right now is like, oh, well, we're still trying to figure that out. No, you're not trying to figure out that you got 500 people in a ballroom who need lighting, video, and audio. Okay, that much you know. We know when we set up, we know when we're done. That's 90% of the job. I don't care how many uplights you're going to have. I don't care about the last little option or if the number of wireless mics changed. None of that is important. We have everything we need to go forward. Finance. Okay. Payments are tied to a timeline. This will calm them down. They need to know how you're getting paid for this. Okay. We don't want to be chasing money on a last minute job 120 days later when we find out that the corporation needed a PO and an onboarding process to take on a new vendor. We've got credit card authorization. Okay. If there are additional payments coming, we can immediately bring finance or accounting into the process and say, okay, they've made the deposit payment, the $10,000. Okay. The next $40,000 has got to come from accounts payable. Now we can connect them, and that is part of the timeline, right? So I need the information to connect my accounts receivable to your accounts payable. I need that by the end of this day. Get a name, get an email address. If you don't make the connection, my people will contact your people without the introduction, right? We'll go around you, okay? You'll get the information that you need, okay? Changes and additions can be due on demand, right? If we haven't issued the final payment or taken the final bit, we can include that in the baseline, okay? But once we've made the ask for that final payment for the baseline, anything after that is a change order. Your timeline says it automatically hits the credit card, right? Unless they've arranged for something in advance. For a last minute customer, this is pretty reasonable terms. If you've put on a wedding anytime in the past 24 months, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The bride's pulling out her credit card before she walks down the aisle if there's a change order. Okay, you can get this done. I got confidence in you. So, little frenetic, but that's the theme, isn't it? If we have our ducks in a row and we know what the process is, we have the presence of mind to recognize the opportunity that's in front of us and a process to put to that buyer about how this is going to work, which, oh, by the way, is going to boost their confidence, reduce the chance that they're going to go off and price shop on a last minute job, which is insane, right? But some people don't know any better, right? They don't understand all the stuff that we've been going through. Short lead projects are a strategic opportunity. I would even consider putting a button on your website that says your job less than 2 weeks away, click here, and show them the process for getting this done. If you have 2 weeks out and you can make a decision, we can help you. Click here, we'll connect you with somebody in the next 15 minutes. You can make this a strategic advantage. You can use this to your leverage. Here's your screenshot. Always commit to the timeline. Here is a timeline. You can modify this. This is the starting point. This is what I just described for you. First contact, you're going to check availability. You're going to get contact information, a quick budget check for a baseline. Set up the next call within 24 hours, get the credit card authorization going. Second contact, present the scope with additional options that they need to consider, present the deadlines and the payments and deliverables for both parties so that we're staying on the timeline. Talk about the options, see if there's any preference issues, any other enhancements we need to consider. Okay, get the reservation fee paid, right? And then set another call within the next 24 hours or sooner, right? You can have check-ins between calls, right? You know, they need to check on something, get back to you, bam, they send you an email, leave a voicemail, send a text. Awesome, great. Third contact, final budget. Here's everything we agreed on. Here's everything that's in progress. Thank you for your deposit. We're already working on this. Here's a few last minute questions. You know, here's the deadline for that option. You've got 4 hours before, you know, if you want to add that second camera and do the produced record feed and have our team edit it for you. You know, all of that's still on the table, but we got to make the decision now, right? Timeline, paste that to your monitor, be ready for this call, be ready to present this to your next short lead opportunity. And it'll have I think it'll have a huge impact on your ability to stay in your wheelhouse, get the margins you need for the assets that you have remaining. Let's talk about some other keys to success in this world. Companies that are successful with this, right? I've talked about baseline budgeting. That was 2 webinars ago. Fast response quoting. I've talked about that before. Scope of work options rather than detailed equipment options, equipment and labor. Say, hey, we could also give you a switched record feed that we can produce for an archive video that we can post up to your website. Great. That's a scope of work. Not all the parts and pieces to it, right? Transparent availability systems. You internally, your team, if your sales team can't look at a Gantt chart and know whether or not you have capabilities or capacity left, okay, then you don't have transparency in your availability. If it's an emotional decision that a one person makes, which is the way it is in many companies, there's that person in operations who's just not feeling comfortable today and they're shutting down everything. No, we need to look at data, right? Data is king here. You need to have confidence in your supply chain, okay? You may not be confident in your supply chain today. It is a core competency. You need to develop that confidence. You need to know where to find more people. You need to know who's available at last minute. You need to know where to get the truck when the first 5 places you normally get a truck from don't have any, right? This is your job. Somebody needs to be working on this. You also need digital agreements and digital payment processing. Otherwise, the wheels fall off. You can't force somebody to stay to a timeline if you have to shuffle paper or get somebody to print a PDF, sign it, scan it back in and send it to you. That's a non-starter. Okay, that is not a company that's prepared to help somebody with a last minute need. So these things are important for you to develop. Some other things you can do to elevate your capacity game, okay? Make capacity an internal discussion. On your weekly sales meetings or update meetings or your production meetings, however it is that you guys communicate and plan, talk about capacity. Talk about where you are tight on capacity. You are never out of capacity, right? If you are, you've already made a mistake, right? You need to be reserving capacity for best fit opportunities, right? You have some perfect clients out there. You have some prospects that you would like to get. Don't blow your available capacity on B2B business or something else that is your low margin, non-ideal targets. Hold capacity back. Look at what's going on right now. You got 5 people, you got 5 crew seats on this job. On the morning of load in, somebody tested positive and has to stay home. Somebody's spouse tested positive and now you've got no child care. Okay. Somebody, the staffing company didn't get the change in load in time. All sorts of things are going to happen. Unfortunately, it's happening a little bit more prevalently. We need to plan for that. Holding back a little bit of capacity means that you can roll with the punches a little bit better. You can book that 6th person on that 5-person crew to make sure that you're not left shorthanded. This short lead protocol that I'm describing, use it even when you have capacity coming out your ears. Do not take a call that's 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out and go, oh yeah, we got plenty of capacity, and go through the old plotting process. Treat it with the same sense of urgency. One, because you get practice. Two, it's going to go better, right? You have a little bit more room, little wiggle room for changes than you would have otherwise. But the fact is, don't let the customer off the hook. And oh, by the way, don't give them the same discount. Treat it as a last minute job. Take care of them. Follow the protocol, follow the timeline, use that to your advantage. Okay? And your margins are going to be better. The job's going to go better. Clients, their expectations are going to be met because they understand what their expectations are and what they agreed to. There's a lot of reasons to use this protocol for last minute jobs. One more thing to talk about, actually two more things. Centralizing outsourcing. You guys know how important that is to me in my world. You need to have a desk for subrentals, a desk for booking labor, knowing labor availability. Those things are very important to make this process work. You can't have project managers doing this because at the last minute they're out there on a job. Who's going to book the labor? You may not have a project manager for this job. You may need to hire one for this job. So that can't be your outsourcing resource. So you need to have those things established in your business. And then think about building that last show. When you get to, like it's October here, we're going into November. If you've got that one spot in the first week of November where yeah, we could probably do a 3-day sales meeting on these dates, or we have about 4 days, that if it falls in the ground support sound for 500 people, a couple of screens, we may have to cross-rent screens, we may have to cross-rent projectors, but the long and the short of it is you can pull it off. It'll fit in a 24-foot truck. You're good to go, right? Talk about that in your capacity updates. Guys, we got one more bobtail's worth of stuff to do, a full service audio video lighting show, as long as it's not any bigger than the Imperial Ballroom at the Marriott. Right? We all understand what that means. The little bits and bobs we can probably pull together if we need them. So, as always, there's a lot of information very, very quickly. I hope you were paying attention and taking notes. Of course, you'll get to check the recording of this later. And get some questions going. I have a couple questions in here already. A lot of, well, what if questions? Well, what if your best client? Get them all out there, guys. I know you want to ask them. This is the time to ask them so that you can figure out how you can apply some or all of this technique. Because I guarantee you're going to get off this webinar and you're going to have a call waiting for a job that's in the next 2 weeks. I hope you handle it a little bit differently than you would have before this webinar. So while you're putting your questions together, next webinar, fiscal budgets are more important than ever, okay? So you want more CapEx, you want salary increases, maybe you want to hire some people, you want a better commission structure. All of that starts with budgeting. Okay? If you are not doing fiscal budgets, this is finance, but this is finance for normal AV people. Okay, this won't be something that you need a degree to understand. This is straightforward stuff. This will also give us the tools that we need to understand how we're doing. Fiscal budgets are more important than ever. I'm going to show you how to set up a budget that you will actually use and you will talk about, and you will look forward to that meeting every month. Believe it or not, you can do it. If you want to find all the webinars that I keep referencing back to, they're on the Intentional Success Network. The ones on my website get updated every month. Okay, but you guys are the insiders. You're my inside crowd. If you're not a member of intentionalsuccess.biz, just click on the link or enter in the URL, go sign up. It's free. I don't spam you. There's nothing, it's just a place where a lot of archived information is for you. You can bring up discussions. I will answer questions out there. It's a great way to interact. Find some other people if you need to. All right. Me, what do I do? Well, if you haven't figured that out by now, this is what I do, right? I'm going to have a straight up honest conversation with you. If you have one with me, we can figure out how we work together. I work from goals. If your goal is to love coming back to work every day, make more money, for things to be easier, retire, whatever it might be, let's start that conversation there. Let's move you faster. right? Let's cut through all the rigmarole, all the mistakes. I've worked with hundreds of companies now. We can bypass a lot of mistakes. And just tell me how soon you want to get started. Okay. So get on my website, find the Let's Talk page, set up an intro call. I'd love to visit with you. It's no obligation. I'll help you with whatever you're dealing with today and figure out what our next conversation should be. I do have a new peer group. Our second call is this coming Friday. You don't have to be tied to the beginning of the year. I will fill it until our seats. Right now, I've got 2 seats remaining open. If you're interested in starting this month or next month, reach out to me quickly because I'm sure those seats will go away. I don't usually tell people how many seats I have left, so I imagine I'll get a couple calls on this pretty darn quickly. There's some great benefits for that. You've seen this in the newsletters. Click on the link, learn more about it. All right, I see questions coming in. Quick summary. You got to love last minute. Last minute is great. It promotes nimble budgeting. You're going to get good at budgeting. You're going to quit worrying about all the details of stuff. Learn how to deal with incomplete information, which I think is a very important skill to develop. You're going to get faster commitment from the buyers. You're going to spend less time and less money chasing jobs, doing complex quotes or pitches for something that needs to be worked on right now. Operations is going to get actionable information sooner. Okay. They hate wishy-washy. They hate, I don't know, we're trying to figure it out. Client hasn't decided. That is useless to them. And you're going to get paid faster. All of these are good things. Love this stuff. Let's talk about some questions here. All right. I think we're doing pretty good on time. All right. First question here. What if they sign off on the baseline, then the job suddenly increases in size? We don't have that kind of depth. There's another question here that asks basically the same question. Had a client who signed up for a small streaming job, and then they added a huge in-person element to it, and it really tanked us. Look, in this process, okay, again, the timeline is important. Your baseline is important. When you wander off the baseline, the rules change a bit. You're basically going back to a new last minute project. They've already committed to the baseline. You're already involved. What else can we do? All right, I got 24 hours. I got 8 days left. Give me till the end of the day to find out if I can find a supplier who can put a 120-foot LED wall, in your expo hall. All right. You can buy time. Sometimes the answer is going to be no. Sometimes the client may want to go out and find another supplier to do that. Okay. All we can do is give them our best information. Just remember that you've already bought into a baseline commitment. Even an enhancement in that general session, okay, is an addition that you don't have to commit to. And you can remind them of that. We told you we were available. We were available for this. This is a little bit outside of what we have ability to pull off right now. Give me some time to see what I can do for you. All right. So you bought yourself some wiggle room. We're not going to abandon them necessarily, but we are going to gently remind him that they are compromising the integrity of an already very compressed process with some additions that, while they sound great, may be difficult to pull off in the middle of October, in the busiest month that we've had in 4 years, right? So you're going to have to deal with some of that, but a lot of that is diplomacy. Another question here. How should last minute requests affect your pricing? Great question. Is there an upcharge? No. Should discounts for clients that usually receive discounts be withheld? Yes. Great. You answered your own question. Absolutely. We're at last minute here. Yes, I know you did the show last month and it was $40,000. I don't have any discounts available for last minute. I've got a lot of variables that I'm going to have to eat costs on. It's going to be $50,000. I hope you understand and you guys ready to move forward. Okay. It's not the time to be price shopping. So yes, even a client who's like done this show for years, it's like, that's not the price I can do at the last minute. The easiest thing to do is just eliminate your discount structure, whatever discounts you had. Even if you had a discount for early payment or payment in advance, that's gone. Payment in advance is defined by the timeline. Okay. not a discount for payment in advance. So you basically all discounts and incentives are off the table. The only incentive is that they meet the timeline so that you can do the job. So great question, great insight in your question. Thank you for all of that. All right, any other questions here? All right, so question here about approval process. All right, so many of you, a lot of my clients now have an approval process in place where if somebody puts a quote together, it's got to go to a manager to get approved before it can be presented to a client. That's good practice. Do not give up on that practice. That is still important. Remember, between that first call and the second call, you have 24 hours to validate all of that. But baseline pricing shouldn't need approval, especially baseline pricing where there is no discounts involved. So if I can look at a job and say, hey, if I go into my rental management system, I pull over the 4 groups with the baseline equipment in it, make a few tweaks, I should be able to have a round budget pretty darn quickly. Don't fiddle with the multipliers. Don't try and go, well, it's a day and a half. I mean, it should be 2 days. No, it's 2 days, right? Don't fiddle with the discounts. Don't massage any of the prices. Bid it straight, okay? That shouldn't need to be reviewed. Now, you're going to put together some options between the first call and the second call. Do take all of that and get that reviewed. So your processes and your people may not be developed enough to follow this procedure yet, but it tells you what you need to work on, okay? You need to be able to put together quotes quickly. You need to do baseline pricing. You need to know how much things cost. You need to be able to give a range saying, hey, this job could be between $50,000 and $80,000, depending on which options you take, what the fit and finish you want. You know, if you want scenic or, you know, whatever it might be, you need to be able to talk in that language or learn how to, because it is vital to be effective in sales and to execute any kind of a last minute sales process. So good question. More questions. Let's see, I don't need to have my share on here, do I? More questions. All right. Okay, so question here, okay, what if you get this process going, the third call, the client backs out and decides that they can't afford to do it, they can't pull it together, blah, 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 blah. That's fine. You've got a deposit. Thank them, okay? You did what you could do. So it's a reservation fee. You put stuff in gear, that money is going to pay to undo the stuff you put into gear, right? The question that should, yeah, there's an operations person right now who's typing in, hey, Tom, I just booked a bunch of freelancers for that job that we're turning around and canceling. And we got a 10,000 deposit. Well, where's that deposit going? Well, guess what? You're just paying all of those guys a one-day rate and thanking them and then hoping you have another job to put them on here very, very soon. Okay, it's not that complicated. So yeah, that's what that reservation fee is for. Does it need to be 10%? Does it need to be 20%? I'll leave that up to you. I would be opting more towards the 20% range for that first 24-hour reservation to get the ball rolling, because that's how much it's going to take to pay out a job that you've put into play if you had to pay it out. Typically, most of your suppliers are going to go, hey, it's cool. We understand. It happens all the time. I was going to take my kids to the fair that day anyway. Great. Okay, so you lucked out. You get to hang on to the deposit, but that's what that deposit is there for. All right. If there's no more questions, I'm going to get this recording uploaded. Thank you guys, as always, for coming. I appreciate it. I know you're busy. Go out there and sell something. Go do some good jobs. Build that deeper supply chain. I hope you're making the profits, the higher profits that you should be making right now. And if not on any of those things, you know where to find me. I'm happy to have a conversation, help you get there faster. So good luck, good show. We got to see you guys again soon.